All right, everybody. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Gluckcast. My name is Jeff Gluck. I'm a motorsports writer for The Athletic and also here at Dirty Mo Media. Listen, newsy week ahead. We've had a lot go on already. A lot of interesting topics to get into, and so we will try to cover it all in this episode, as well as have some guests. Obviously, you guys saw the Cleetus McFarland coming to Richard Childress Racing in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series to do some super speedways. So, NASCAR's driver approval process is back in the spotlight. We have Pato O'Ward, IndyCar's most popular driver, talking about whether IndyCar should be feeling bad about being a support series. He doesn't really love the idea of the NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader this weekend at Phoenix. We will be previewing Phoenix, of course, from the NASCAR standpoint, and also talking briefly about a crazy situation at the dawn of the Formula One season, which starts this weekend as well. But first, let's talk about wrapping up COTA and what some of these drivers had to go through last week. I don't know if you saw, but I wrote this week on The Athletic about Brad Keselowski, his grueling effort to finish the entire road course race, despite his still healing broken femur. After there was a chance he would never walk again, and now has come back to race in such a short time. Finished the whole race, finished 20th. That was amazing. We obviously know Alex Bowman was ailing in the car and had to be pulled out for a substitute driver. By the way, Myatt Snyder, I'm still waiting for my call back. I tried. Love to get Myatt Snyder on the show. But we don't know what is going on with Alex Bowman still at this point as we record this on Thursday morning. And but we know he obviously wasn't doing well. Eric Jones wasn't feeling well as well, and had Harrison Burton on standby. So there was a chance he was going to have to come out of the car. I heard them talk about that on Hauler Talk, the NASCAR podcast. They had David Green on, saying David Green was down in the pits getting ready to switch out that ride if Eric Jones was going to have to come in. And then he got the call for the 48 to go work on the safety elements of that. We know Kyle Larson's cool shirt failed. AJ Allmendinger's cool shirt failed. We found out later Ryan Preece's cool shirt failed. Bozy Tatarevich had some great coverage this week about why the cool shirts don't always work. You can check out his work on the new Dirty Mo Overdrive channel. But by the way, what does that feel like, for the drivers gutting that out? Ryan Preece was on a Ford conference call this week, and he had this to say. He said, it's almost like putting somebody on a treadmill and telling them to run 12 miles an hour, and they're not stopping until you say so. Even though they're gassed and their heart rate might be at 200 and they can't go anymore, you are not stopping. So that is a quite intense effort there that obviously we can't relate to, or I can't. Obviously, AJ Allmendinger, again, was another one of those who made it to the finish despite not feeling well. And his 9th place finish now puts him an amazing 5th in points heading into Phoenix. I mean, he may be the story of the young season here in terms of the point standings and how that's all shaken out. The chase is giving us more storylines to talk about in terms of points. Last we did see AJ, he was lying on the ground outside his car. We do trust he's feeling better now. So let's go ahead and hear from him with an interview. We are now joined by a man who is still alive, AJ Allmendinger. Very happy to see you, AJ. First of all, you've scared us a little bit. How are you doing after that race?
It'd be tough to do this interview if I wasn't alive. So that's a good start. So yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, it was just got a little hot in the race car and needed to get out as quick as possible. And once the race was over, and the medical team did a great job, just got IVs and iced up. And I mean, I was, I'd say, back to 90% at least, within the hour, flying back home.
Well, listen, I mean, we joke about it, but I think one thing that gets so overlooked in our sport is the toughness that you guys have to go through and put on display for everybody. I mean, Keselowski with his leg last week, grinding out on a road course, the cool suits and the heat situation that you deal with. I mean, you not only finished that race, you finished 9th. Obviously you were not feeling well I don't know how long in that race you were not feeling well, but how did you make it to the end of that, let alone finish 10th?
Well, I mean, it's just mind over matter at that point. it was definitely certain parts of that race. It was a struggle. Probably fortunate that caution came out with whatever it was, 17 to go, for a couple of reasons, just to be able to pit there and get some water so I could at least dump on me to like kind of reset myself. I felt like when I would dump cold water on me down my shirt, it would kind of at least reset me for about 8 to 10 laps and make me kind of half forget about it before it all came back. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just trying not to give up for my team. And we had a pretty good day going. We had planned to, with the way the points are now, if we felt like we didn't have a real shot to win the race, go out there and try to get stage points in both stages, knowing that would put us behind in the third stage, and just do the best possible race in the third stage to get as far up as we could. And I thought it worked out well. We finished fourth when it came to points in the race, finished ninth overall, but had the fourth most points, which I think is what you kind of got to look at if you don't win the race. And so it went to plan. So at the end of the day, being hot and sick in the race car, the way I felt, I couldn't give up, and I did not want to give up, and it was tough, but that's all part of it. It sometimes you got to deal with it.
What is it, those cool suits and stuff not working? We hear it Cook's drivers and all that stuff. Is there any way to describe the sensation? Obviously I haven't been through something like that.
I guess you just put yourself in the smallest box possible where you're sitting down in it and there's nowhere to move, and just crank the heat up as high as it goes, and just, the heat is one thing, but at the end of the day, it's like anxiety starts building, right? Where you can't get out, or, I guess at the end of the day, I could have gotten out, but you don't want to get out, and you just, it's almost like panic sets in a little bit. You're just like, okay, I just don't want to be here anymore, but I got to focus. I got to do the best that I can. I had to laugh. My spotter, TJ Bell, with 13 to go, I think my crew chief, Trent Owens, count down each lap. And with 12 to go, he's like, 12 to go. I said, stop counting down. I don't want to know. I want to come by one time and you'd be like, 4 to go. And I don't want to count every lap. So, yeah, it's a struggle. These cars are hot. It's these new generation cars are hot, and that's something that is part of it. Don't mind my cat right now. That's just rubbing on my computer right now. Charlotte, get down. My house is a circus, by the way. 3 cats, dog. Charlotte, good Lord. 3 cats, a dog, 2.5-year-old. Yeah, so my house is a circus, but. No, so you just fight through it, and you make the best of it.
Why do these cool suits? These shirts are. I know the teams are probably pushing them, but do you get mad when this happens? Like this seems to happen to somebody at least once a week. It feels like. Do I get mad? No, because I guess the best way to explain it is 95% of the time when they work well, it's a big deal. Those things get down to 40, 45 degrees. And in hot races, when especially because it's on, for me at least, with the shirt being on your chest, it keeps your heart cool. And it makes a big deal. So I think we know the issue. Chris is looking into it and making sure it doesn't happen again. I think, for the most part, I'd say fairly confident we know what the issue was, and we move forward, and you just, once in a while it happens. It's happened a couple times to me, but when it works, it's great. And it's not like it's 60% of the time it works. It works 95% of the time. Well, listen, that heroic effort aside, and I did say 10th at one point. I meant 9th. I don't want to shortchange you a spot where you fought so hard for that. But listen, 5th in points is I think one of the best stories of the season so far, and super underrated at this time. But I'm glad that we have a chance to talk about stories like this because of the new point system and because of the way the chase is. And it's not just like, well, we don't know. He's probably still gonna have to win a race. It's like, no, this is a great start. We completely a lot of us dismissed your team because Colleague's on their own this year. You don't have the alliance anymore. And it's like, how are they going to do this? And if you would have told me after the first 3 races of the season that you were 5th in points, I would have thought, well, he probably had a, top 5 at Daytona. He stayed out of trouble somehow. I mean, but it wasn't even Daytona that set you up. Like you've had 3 just solid finishes. Again, a great top 10. You've completed every lap. And now you've given yourself some sort of a cushion, at least some sort of a buffer as we get into the oval portion of this season to see what you can do. How are you feeling about your points position? I know it's probably still a long shot to think playoffs, but is this a possibility?
I mean, I think it's always a possibility. We'll find out what we are in the next 5 or 6 weeks, where we're, really at as an organization. When it comes to the way that the points are, you just got to race smart sometimes. Daytona, I used the strategy to try to ride at the back and stay out of trouble. And the way those races work, you're basically waiting until each pit stop and trying to jump people by saving more fuel. And, it didn't work out. We struggled on fuel mileage that race for whatever reason. And just had to be smart, missed the big wreck at the end, had an okay finish. I was actually kind of mad because I had missed the wreck, but by missing it, I bounced off the apron and spun out. So it actually cost us 5 spots. So I was more mad about that at Daytona than anything. Atlanta, it was the same thing. We had a really good car, just try to race smart as you can at Atlanta, the way those racing is. Had a 12th place finish. And, like I said, with this past weekend, we knew from practice and just qualifying, long shot to win the race. Trent and I had decided, if through the first stage, if we don't just drive up to the top 2 or 3 and really have a shot to win the race, we are going to run the stages out and you're going to race for points. And that's what we did. So, yeah, it's still a long ways to go. Phoenix this weekend, we go in with a lot of positive energy, but it's also our worst racetrack. And we know there, honestly, if we show up and we can run inside the top 20 all day and have a top 20 finish, like we're heading in the right direction with our race team, even with the challenges that we're facing. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to be where we're at in points. It's also, I don't get overjoyed by it because I know we got a long ways to go. But, this time last year, I had a 41st, a 14th, and a 30th place finish with no stage points. And we were like 30th in points. So to be on this side of it, at least, we have a good start.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just looking at the points and the finishes from last year to start. So it's a great thing to see you up and doing this. And we'll see if your veteran mindset can keep you up there and stay out of trouble. So thanks for joining us. Really appreciate that.
I appreciate it having me. Thank you, guys.
All right. AJ Allmendinger, everybody, on the Gluckcast. Thanks to him for his time, and we'll see if they're able to continue what they've been doing so far. Now, another big story, though, this week was Cleetus McFarland. And you saw probably his interview on the Dale Jr. download where he says he's going to be running some super speedway races for Richard Childress Racing over the next few years. And obviously that sparked once again some of the controversy and comments about NASCAR's driver approval process. Listen, I know it's probably not going to be popular. I don't have a big issue with this one. NASCAR's already approved him for all the Truck Series races, and the next step, once you're approved for all truck races, is to run O'Reilly Series short track. So had he asked, he may have gotten approved for those already. Now, but he's not trying to run short tracks, which to me is a smart move because obviously he has a major lack of experience. We all know that. He's trying to run super speedways, which are, again, arguably from a driving standpoint, not that I've ever driven a stock car, but seem easier. I mean, think about a NASCAR video game, right? You start on a NASCAR video game, you're a beginner, you go around Daytona or Talladega, you're wide open. It's a lot easier than trying to do some of the other tracks, a lot easier than trying to do a Pocono or obviously a road course or something like that, right? And, you know, in order to approve him to run on a super speedway, he's got to run at least something else in O'Reilly first. And so he's going to do this Rockingham race in order to get approved for Talladega. Now, it's no guarantee that he's going to get approved for Talladega. This is not just a rubber stamp moment. I talked to NASCAR about this. I mean, if, there's a chance he could crash or not run well enough, and they could say, you know what, you're not ready for Talladega yet. And look, I get the people who are saying this is too early, he's too rushed, and they're criticizing him for trying to run up the ladder like this. And to me, look, if he does crash and he takes out a O'Reilly contender, as he's being a lapped car or whatever, everybody absolutely has a right to be upset and criticize him, and he will be criticized. And we saw Catherine Legg at Phoenix in the Cup race get this criticism. But again, I think like a Phoenix situation where it's harder to stay out of the way is different than a super speedway. To me, like a super speedway is about, are you gonna be a safety hazard to yourself or others, right? And also the only way to get experience at those type of tracks is to go do them. I mean, let's say you take somebody that's in the Cars Tour right now and they are fantastic short track racer and they start in trucks and they build their way up. You still haven't gotten their way to a super speedway. Like that element of racing is totally different than anything else. I mean, the drafting part of racing is so different. So I just don't think that I don't have a problem with how he's doing it because he's trying to do super speedways. If he was coming in and saying, hey, listen, like I'm trying to do all these other tracks, or I'm trying to run a full season right now in O'Reilly without this experience, I'd say, ooh, let's pump the brakes on this one, But I also think too, like it's important to note what this means for NASCAR. I don't know if you saw Mark Martin did an overdrive video for Dirty Mo as well. And he pointed out, I mean, and his popularity is not about getting him permission to get a license, but he, as Mark said, he has arguably a bigger fan following than any Cup driver right now. I mean, he has 4 million YouTube subscribers. I mean, if you're watching this, you're watching a YouTube channel that has 11,000 YouTube subscribers. I'm new at this, but I mean, Eric Estep is the most popular NASCAR YouTuber, and he has a little over 200,000 YouTube subscribers. I mean, Cleetus to have, 4 million, that's an unbelievable amount. And again, that's not permission to, just have a celebrity come in or a YouTuber come in. But as Mark Martin said, I mean, he's watched his races, he does in the Crown Vics and stuff, and he can drive, he feels like. So to me, like, we'll see how Rockingham goes. And we'll see what comes of it, and if he does get approved. But I think that people really need to realize this is a net positive for the sport overall. And so on that topic, whose idea was this to get him at RCR and put him in a fast super speedway car and see what he can do? I believe our next guest might be able to shed some light on that. So let's welcome in Ty Dillon now. Hello, Ty. How are you doing today?
What's up, buddy? I'm doing good. It's been a fun couple days here in North Carolina. Also trying to prep for Phoenix, but pretty excited with all the Cleetus stuff and what we're doing over at RCR with that.
Well, people might be surprised that I brought you in. They might have thought, oh, I don't know who he's going to bring in from Richard Childress Racing right now. But even when I reached out to Jackie from RCR and I said, what was this, an Austin brainchild type thing? She said, no, this is a Ty Dillon brainchild. So tell me about this process. What did you see from Cleetus that you said, you know what, I think we could do this. This could be a really good deal for our team. This could bring a lot. What did you see?
Yeah, I think kind of starting the beginning for me, my first exposure to Cleetus and his YouTube channel was back at Talladega, I believe last year. They were doing the challenge where they took the motorhomes all the way from North Carolina to Talladega with the Biff, and my wife and kids and I watched the whole series, and we're sucked in, and we're literally at the racetrack. So we went and saw them on Talladega Boulevard, and that was kind of the beginning of my awareness. My bus driver, David, actually was the one who showed us. And from that, we followed him and just saw his passion for not only NASCAR, but motorsports in general. Everything that he did was fun to watch. He was excited about every opportunity that he got. And then I kind of started watching a little more with intention on his racing. and just started seeing things. And I think even with everything that went on in the off season, my grandfather's involvement in the NASCAR trials, which you guys did an amazing job on. I mean, I sat right there with you guys for a couple days and put my time in, but I think there was a realization for us at RCR of who we are is who Richard Childress is. You know, my grandfather is a blue collar, hardworking guy who has an insane passion for motorsports. And that's where it all began. And his kind of leap of faith to buy a $20 taxi cab has turned into so much greatness for our family and NASCAR in general. And I feel like we kind of started putting our heads together, Mike Verlander, myself, my dad, my brother, and my grandfather, and like, how can we get back to reminding people who we are at RCR, reminding who we are, who my grandfather is, like touching back to what is true to who we are. And this was something that I felt like was kind of paralleling along with our conversations. And I just kind of one day was like, hey, if I can get a hold of Cleetus, would you guys, be into this idea? And I think everybody was kind of like, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. And I was pitching him on it like, I think we can make this work. I think it's going to be good for both sides. His fan base is our fan base, but we need to kind of merge them together, right? Like, I think his people will love us. I think our people will love him. And then the sport of NASCAR together, we can put something great together. So I called him, was able to find his number, got a hold of him, was like, hey, man, what do you think about this idea? Like, I know you're wanting to, race in NASCAR, and asked him, like, what is your goals? And he's like, I love the super speedways and I would love to one day race in the Cup Series. Daytona 500 would be awesome. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to talk a little bit more, see what we can figure out. But I think there's some synergy here. And we would only want to do this if you can stay original to who you are. We wouldn't want this to take you off of who Cleetus is, what your channel is, and what makes you fun and you have fun. And if we're not having fun doing this whole project, we're failing. And if after this is up, this and we're not having fun, we've all done wrong. So that's the heart kind of behind it all. Certainly I kind of came up with the idea, but Mike Verlander and my dad, my grandfather all pushed this thing forward to make it happen. I think one of the coolest things is we fight so hard for sponsorship in everything that we do, whether it's myself and my racing career, and I have amazing partners and we do so much for them. But the Tommy's Express car wash deal came together in a day. I mean, he reached out quick and these guys were like, absolutely, this is awesome. They understood the value in not only having a superstar YouTuber in Cleetus who is a good person and represents brands amazingly already, but then you bring him into the NASCAR world with RCR and everything that we bring in the O'Reilly series over there. And they were just on board and were able to nail down a good deal. And the plan is to grow Cleetus in the sport. We believe with the resources that RCR has that we can take his inexperience but surround him with confidence and people who care and want to push him to get the best out of himself and get to that goal. Like, he is, as funny as he is and outgoing and hilarious and has so much fun creating his videos, he is very serious about wanting to get, achieve these things in NASCAR, but do it the right way. He doesn't want to rub people the wrong way. He wants to work for it. Like, one of our first few conversations, he was like, I'll fly up there whenever you need me, get on the simulator, I'll be at the shop, whatever you guys want, I'll be there. I really want to do this right. And I thought that was like, that's the heart behind all of us. We want to do this right. We want to give him every opportunity to achieve that. We got to go to Rockingham, which is kind of a crazy one. If I was NASCAR, I think Rockingham is almost a tougher place to go and make a start than to go to Talladega in a sense. But, we're going to put everything behind him. We got him on the simulator. The guys are working with him, and we're going to give him the information that he's never had and slowly work into this. And I think what's going to be fun is we're going to tell the story along the way. And he's got to have a good Rockingham to be able to make it to the next race that we're planning on getting to and that we've told the sponsor that we're going to get to. So I think we're going to bring all these fans along for the ride and show what goes into getting your opportunity. And hopefully this just opens doors for everyone in our sport. And I think for me, I have a awesome year going in the driving side, but I have so much passion for this sport in general. We have to think differently. I think there's a lot of young owners coming into the sport, a lot of money that's coming to the sport, but right now there's a lot of um, I guess putting a bow on the same stuff we've always done. We've only really put brighter colors and fancier setups around the same system that's always gone on and on and on. And I think we got to find ways to reach out and see things differently. Usually it's always been a talented driver and find the sponsorship. Well, what if you have a talented entertainer that we can raise into a great driver and follow that journey along the way? And that might not be the model for everyone. That might not be what works over and over and over again, but we're not afraid at RCR to step out on a limb, do something different. And the reason it works specifically for RCR is Cleetus is a guy who is similar in a way, even though it's YouTube. But my grandfather was a guy who took a risk on his career. Cleetus talks about all the time where he was out of money with the Freedom Factory in 2020, and he put it all on the line to kind of keep his YouTube channel going and everything that he's doing. This guy has not. It's not been easy, and he has risked to try to get to these opportunities, and his fans have brought him along the way. And that's something that we can speak to in the true heart of who we are at RCR as well. So I think that makes our synergy and this whole project better is because we align so much to who he is and his passion for motorsports, which is the origin for all this for us. And I think this will remind us all that we're an entertainment sport and we need to have a little bit more fun. And that's, I guess, my last point. I'm kind of rambling on and on, but Cleetus is fun and watching his channel is fun. NASCAR has to be fun for us again. As cup drivers, I've had my career. It's very easy for us drivers to make it look not fun, but we're getting to drive race cars fast every single weekend, and we all got to lean into entertainment and fun of what we do. And I think he's going to bring that, but we're also going to be fierce competitors too.
I think that's a great point. And that's something that I have felt is changed from early in my career. And maybe it's perception, but I have always felt like the drivers, when I first started covering it in the mid 2000s and stuff, they'd get out of the cars and, they'd be like, man, like I didn't win, but that was a blast. Like it was fun driving these cars today kind of thing. And you felt that and that's what you wanted to feel as somebody watching, like that these guys enjoyed what they were doing and they had a blast racing each other and slicing and dicing. And once we got to sort of like the COT era, and, sort of at the end of the last car, I think it got a little bit better, but certainly with this car, you don't hear you guys get out very often and be like, that was a blast today. Like that was fun. And I think that translates sometimes, right? Like you don't feel that. Plus the pressure so much now. There's so much pressure, it's like, oh, these, I'm trying to fulfill these teams' livelihoods and put food on the table. And I'm a young driver with a bunch of grown men. And so I appreciate that element of it. And I do think there's something to mine there where like, obviously you don't want it to be some disaster or something where you affect other people's day, but like if you do it the right way, which it sounds like you guys have a good plan to do it. Like, I think there is a pathway there that this could be really, really beneficial.
Yeah, and this is something I'm passionate about because I've been in my career at points where early in my career it was easy for me to find the negative of every weekend, and it brought me down to a person that I wasn't really happy being. And then I had perspective change when I didn't have this opportunity anymore, and you realize, man, what we do, there's only a few of us in the world that get this opportunity. And when I was able to get my chances back to come back in the sport, I think you could tell last year in the in-season challenge, like I was having so much fun and getting out and having those interviews, throwing little bitty jabs at people, but trying to have fun with what we're doing finally meant a lot to me. And that was like the longest stretch of my career where it's like, I can't wait to get to the next track and just see what happens. Even if I get kicked out, like I'm going to have fun with that in the process because this is a cool thing that NASCAR's created and it's given us opportunity. And I think one of the easiest things to do in life in general is to find the negative and stuff. And negativity is a virus. And so I think you get in the COT, there was some negative comments. It's easy to talk negative about the sport because maybe you're not confident in how you're performing in the car or things are going. And then you start seeing young drivers in their first few interviews that they do after races. Well, I'm not good enough and I've got to get better. And all these negative things, like as somebody who's watching drivers different now, like I want to see somebody that's like, you know what, I gave it my all. I've got a lot to go, but this was awesome. I'm so grateful I got that opportunity. I just learned so much and I'm going to get better. Like that's harder to do than to hop out and say, well, I'm not good enough. Like, let's get over that. Let's be positive about the future. Let's speak positivity into our careers and our sport, and we will all grow together. And that is something that Cleetus does outstanding. You know, like look at his interviews. What is he doing? He's being positive, and he's crashed in every single one of them. Most of them are outside the medical center, but he is so pumped that he's getting the opportunity. And look what it's done for him. So we can all learn from this. And we're gonna get Cleetus where he needs to be. You know, each race is gonna be a journey. But I told him last night, I'm like, man, I can't wait to look back in 2 years and say, like, dude, look how far we've come. Now we're competing. We're in here fighting, and that's the goal for all of this. And like I said, we've got to have fun doing it.
Well, I want to get you out of here on a note about your own career as well, because as you mentioned earlier, 14th, 16th, and 16th to start the season, and you're only 3 points out of the chase after the first 3 races. We had your teammate AJ Allmendinger on earlier, and like straight up, I mean, I thought, man, this is, you know, the way that Colleague is on their own with an independent team now, and losing the alliance part of it, it's going to be such an uphill battle for them. We see how important that information is, it seems like, from an outsider's perspective. And I know it's, you know, getting into the heart of the quote real season now, but you have to be pretty pumped the way that you guys have started.
Yeah, I really am. I think we're all pretty excited. And you know, we knew this was going to bring some challenges. You know, it's a different era for college racing, but every man and woman in that shop hasn't changed a bit of their attitude. Chris Rice and Ty Norris, everybody has just kept driving that train of like, we're gonna be fine. Like, let's just get to the track and so we can show it. And we've actually just improved. I don't think Colleagues ever had a car in the top 10 in points after 3 races. We were talking about that in our meeting, so that was a big deal. And we're sitting 3 points out of the chase, which I keep reminding my wife and my friends, like, hey, I'm battling for a chase spot. You know, it's kind of fun. But like, if we can keep rattling off these top 15, 16s, we're gonna be legit. And doing it 3 races in a row. You know, Phoenix will be another measuring stick if we can do it at an oval. Then we've got something real here, and we're just working hard. We're not going to let the kind of back to it. Like, we're not going to let the things that could be seen as negative bog us down, and use the tools that we have to the best of our ability. And it's a big testament to Mike Cook and Andrew Dickinson, my crew chief, Trent Owens. Like, they all work together so hard, all our engineers. And I promise you, we might have the least amount of tools currently, and we're building tools because of such a changeover and everything. But these guys are working so hard to still put the best product they can. And AJ and I are so proud to drive for all these guys that are working hard. So we're looking forward to the rest of this year and excited to get to Phoenix.
Well, Ty, somehow I always feel more positive and energized about my day after talking to you. So appreciate you hopping on here and helping me pump up the rest of my afternoon here. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you having me on. And you know, I sat with you guys during the NASCAR trial, and I appreciate what you guys do. You tell stories in a great way, and hopefully you guys keep pushing our sport forward in that way, finding new unique ways to keep telling good stories for our sport. You guys mean a lot.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Very much. Ty Dillon, everybody, shedding some light on why Cleetus is at RCR. Pretty cool story there, and appreciate him sharing all the background on that. Well, another big story that was going on this week was Pato O'Ward, IndyCar's most popular driver. And obviously, you know that the doubleheader is coming up for NASCAR and IndyCar at Phoenix this week. Obviously, you know, that's a big Fox initiative, right? That's a big favor to Fox in a way, because Fox is obviously a big NASCAR partner and obviously owns part of IndyCar now as well. And there was a big gap in the IndyCar season. And, you know, IndyCar has a great race coming up next week where they're going to be racing around the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, sort of in the parking lot there, in a new race, the Arlington Grand Prix. That's going to be a big deal. And so Fox had a problem because they said, listen, we start the race in St. Pete and then we go a few weeks and we lose all our momentum from these glossy Super Bowl commercials. So, you know, can we race with NASCAR in Phoenix? So they will be doing that on Saturday. But Pato O'Ward, talking to reporters in St. Pete last week, a video Bob Pockris posted said, "I'm already tired of IndyCar being like the support race. I know that every time we race with them, we are always the sideshow. It's great for the fans, but not for us." Later, I tweeted the ratings numbers, and this was Pato's response. He said, because the numbers were 3.9 million for NASCAR, 1.4 million for IndyCar in terms of the viewership from last week. And he said, I stand corrected. I'm so happy to be here with NASCAR this week. And I'm sure also maybe some people weren't happy with him saying that. So I'm interested to hear more from the IndyCar perspective. So we have another podcast host, and in fact, somebody who shares the same producer, Bobby Marcos. We're like podcast cousins, all in the family here. So Conor Daly will join us now with his podcast, Speed Street. It's got the Speed Street t-shirt on before he flies to Phoenix. Conor, how are you doing?
Good. I'm great. I'm excited to be here. Didn't know it was going to be live, but I love live shows, so let's go.
Oh, okay. So we are live, and we're doing it. And Conor is one of my favorite people that I've met in racing. Always just a great dude to talk to, and always been super kind to me. And especially when I'm dabbling over an IndyCar world, that I love being over there, and especially for the Indy 500 every year, but not my home. So I always feel like, okay, well, there's Conor, and I listen to your podcast, and it helps me grasp so much of what the IndyCar thinking is and all that stuff. I mean, obviously you heard the Pato comments, and I don't want you to have to speak for him or even speak for the paddock, but what do IndyCar drivers in general think is the best way to try to get new fans and try to grow the sport, when obviously, you feel like you have an amazing product and you just need more eyeballs?
Well, I actually got to spend a lot of time with Pato over this off season. For some reason, we just started to bond over a few things, and he is without a doubt our most popular driver. I actually saw he has personal security now in the paddock, which is very much like F1. Every F1 driver I saw in Vegas has a guy that's like, parting the waters, making sure no one's getting a little too crazy. And I love that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's great. And Pato has a passionate fan base. But I also, that might have happened after he saw the fact that all the IndyCar teams had to move the entire pit box situation out of the paddock for the truck race. Maybe like some of his crew guys were frustrated because it's a lot of work to put all that stuff in and then completely remove it and then put it back in just before qualifying. Now, again, I thought the weekend was awesome. And the fact that the trucks I spotted for the truck race for Chandler Smith, I thought it was a lot of fun. And there were a lot of fans, and I don't normally get to do this. I can't remember the last time I watched a race from a grandstand, but I was up top of turn 11 grandstand, made some friends with some fantastic folks who were there for the IndyCar race, but were locked in for the truck race. And the grandstand was full, completely full, people everywhere. And it was people enjoying motor racing that was going on. It didn't matter. No one was there like, hi, I'm just here for one race, and then I would like to exit. It's like, no. We're there, we're in the stands, and we're going to take in motor racing. IndyCar was qualifying afterwards. Not one person left. They were all there for the truck race and then IndyCar qualifying. So I think it's so cool. And what I love about this weekend in Phoenix, very same thing. We're going to see a lot of motor racing. We're going to see, ARCA's there. You got O'Reilly Series. We got trucks, IndyCar. I just think that's awesome. And I think what Pato was referencing was probably just because the paddocks were going crazy and maybe that. But I think it's a good thing. And we for sure were not the support race. That was kind of a wild thing to say. I thought it was a benefit to both series. I thought it was cool that, you had Colin Brown in the race. You had James Hinchcliffe, Dario Franchitti. When is that not going to make someone who likes watching cars go around tracks be excited? For me, I was excited. I couldn't wait to watch.
Well, I guess I'm trying to understand because look, if NASCAR said, hey, we want to go run the F1 Vegas course, F1 is not going to be like, oh, sure, we'll put you in it's our race sort of thing. and it didn't seem from my distant view, it certainly didn't seem like St. Pete was. Phoenix is definitely that, but NASCAR was already there anyway. But I guess I'm trying to understand I get the pride, right? And I do think that IndyCar gets totally overlooked in so many ways, right? Like you have world-class drivers, you have way more competitive racing than F1. You've got amazing storylines, great personalities. And, I've listened to your podcast so many times, and it's just so much of it's like, gosh, are we like screaming into the void here? So I get that you don't want to make yourself a lesser series, because you're not, right? And so I get where, like, if you're in that position, but also there's such an opportunity for, when NASCAR fans are open-minded and they're saying, oh, damn, I mean, Phoenix is going to be badass, I would assume. Like the Indy cars are going to look spectacular there. So I don't know. Like how do you avoid the sensitivity of being like, man, we deserve our own spotlight, but yet this could also be good for our series,
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Why I think we see it with sport in general, right? That there's a reason why sports have seasons, and the NFL isn't going up against the NBA for the most part, and the MLB. Like the NFL and the NBA are going up against each other a little bit, but for the most part, there are different seasons. And the NBA is like normally on Christmas Day, but then NFL is like, well, we're going to have some Christmas Day games too. And, everyone's fighting for viewership, and it's the same in our world too, right? Whereas our seasons are kind of all at the exact same time because we have to be in the warmth. It is what it is. But I think our fan bases are kind of more similar because we're all watching the same thing, essentially. We're watching vehicles that are very fast go in circles for long times. And you hope that they do them in a very competitive and very entertaining way. Now, there's obviously different art forms, et cetera. I think from what I see, from where I started in IndyCar, right? Like I guess I'm older. I've seen a lot of different times, not a lot of different times, but at least certain different eras of our sport. I think IndyCar is growing. And I think NASCAR, when you look at the TV ratings, everyone's like, oh, well, it's down a little bit. I mean, NASCAR still is such a powerhouse. And I don't think you can ignore that, because if you see all across the weekend, you have trucks at 1 million viewers, O'Reilly at over 1 million viewers, and then Cup is over 3.5, 4, almost 4 million viewers. I mean, guess what, guys? That's a lot of people watching sport and watching your sport. I don't think that's a bad thing. And the fact that you have 3 series at the top level able to sustain, viewership, able to sustain sponsorship, you're able to. I mean, Justin Allgaier's made an incredible career out of running just technically the tier 2 series, right? But that's not, it shouldn't be tiered like that, but it is, but you can still make a living doing that. So I don't know. I feel like the sport is in an interesting place. We all want to go for more viewers. We all want it to happen. I think IndyCar is the most underutilized right now, and I think we're getting there. I think Penske Entertainment, the promotion for St. Pete was awesome. I haven't seen that level in years. I think everything that's going toward, like what Fox is doing, is awesome. I think what the series is doing is awesome, but it doesn't happen overnight. Fox just invested last year, and they put a big chunk of money into our sport. So I don't know, man. It's not a one day everything is fixed type program. But now, everyone complained last year that we didn't have a race after St. Pete. Well, guess what? We fixed that in a year. It was like, yep, we listened to everyone. That sucked. Okay, we're going racing now 3 weeks in a row. So, okay, let's see what the result of that is. You know what I mean? Let's see, does that lock it? We had 1.4 million viewers. Okay, is it 1.4 the next weekend? I hope so. I would hope that people want to see now, all right, wait, hang on. We're going racing on ovals. Awesome. So I don't know. It's not fixed in one day, but I'm excited that we did fix one problem of going racing consistently right out the gate. And hopefully that can kind of build even more momentum heading into May and then the summer stretch.
Well, obviously, Pato, I hope NASCAR fans know him for more than just these comments, but some maybe don't. I mean, you would think that they watch the Indy 500 at least and have seen these amazing runs and the close calls he's had. But for those who don't know, I mean, the magnetic personality that he has, especially, when he goes down to Mexico, and I mean, it just sounds like a rock star type environment down there. I would love to see him, even achieve that next level of stardom in America, and then help IndyCar as a whole, sort of a Tiger Woods effect type thing where people are watching just to see how he does. How does he take the next step in his own popularity to help IndyCar as a whole lift up?
That's an interesting question. I don't think it's down to one guy. You know what I mean? I really don't. I don't think it's down to one person. I think Pato in general, part of what makes IndyCar, and I think motorsport in general, obviously there's a lot more American drivers in NASCAR than there is in, the IndyCar and F1. But that international flair, the having drivers from all around the world, I think is really beneficial. And you've got certain parts of the world that follow motorsport more than others. You know what I mean? And that's why they show up to support their guy, which is really cool. But I don't think it's on Pato. I think he's already a winner. He runs at the front. He's with the biggest, commercial team of all time. McLaren, they are the standard essentially when it comes to just coolness. I think it's like, oh, McLaren, yeah, papaya. We're supporting that group. You know what I mean? F1 world champions, etc. And Zach Brown's done an amazing job, with Tony Kanaan and all of his whole leadership over there. I think it's awesome. But yeah, it's not down to one guy. We have Pato, but we should have, 10 other drivers that also need security guards or that also have such a buzz about them that, that kind of elevates our sport to the next level. But again, it's one step at a time. I think right now the Indy 500 was so awesome last year being a sellout. And I have a feeling it's probably going to be a sellout again this year with the same, amount of momentum. You've got Mick Schumacher now in IndyCar, which I think is really cool just for the sport. As someone who grew up, watching his dad race, I thought that was awesome. So I don't know. It's not down to one guy, but I'm glad we have Pato on our side.
Well, let's preview Phoenix here really quick. I know you're about to fly out later tonight to do some stuff. Sounds like you're doing an ARCO appearance with Ty Gibbs. Is that right? I mean,
yeah. So my deal with ARCO and AMPM, they obviously supported me last year. They're still supporting me this year. Our whole program still hasn't really been uncovered yet. But obviously I'm still working with JHR, the team that I was with last year. ARCO's on Renus's car this year, which again, we helped input into that program. So I'm out there supporting them, and Ty Gibbs has AMPM on his car with Joe Gibbs. Obviously, Joe Gibbs had that deal last year with Denny Hamlin as well. So it's kind of using both the sports together, which again, I think is great for partners to do. Hopefully more partners can do that as well. If they're involved in both sports, let's work together. I think this is cool. So shout out to ARCO and AMPM for doing that. I think that's awesome. And yeah, going to work with them. And then next week, I'm going to go to Arlington and drive the 2-seater as well, back to my taxi driver's role. But yeah, Phoenix, I think, is going to be awesome. I hope the tire helps the racing. I think it's still going to be a question of what the Goodyear rubber does versus the Firestone rubber, and when they go back and forth. After talking to a lot of the drivers, I do think that there is going to be a good amount of degradation, which obviously helps racing. And honestly, I think since the last time we went to Phoenix, and maybe I helped with this, I'm not sure, but more drivers are more brave. So we're going to go out there and we're going to create maybe a high line. Maybe it is going to be more people willing and comfortable enough to go, half a car length higher to create some racing. I think we're in an era where the drivers are doing enough work to make it a better race, but we'll see. So I just can't wait to be out there because I think Phoenix is awesome and I love that track, and I wish I was racing, obviously, but still good to be involved in the weekend, and yeah, hopefully it's good all around.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like could be going 40 miles per hour faster.
We're definitely faster.
Yeah. It's gonna be quite an eye opener for NASCAR fans who bought their O'Reilly ticket for Saturday and Cup qualifying ticket, and are just gonna be like, "Whoa, IndyCar!" Like that's gonna be quite a show, quite an eye opener. So, look forward to seeing you out there tomorrow, I guess. Yeah. Thank you for
we'll be out there, and I'll be in a race car at some point. Just stay tuned. So we're going to keep working on it. There's a lot going on for the future, hopefully for like 27 and 28, which looks good. But right now we're going to be staying vigilant, and yeah, I'll be out in the car at some point.
I would be very sad if that wasn't the case. So I'm glad to hear that. But thank you again for hopping on. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Conor Daly, everybody. Again, one of my favorite people that I've met in racing. Always such a great dude to talk to, and appreciate his time. Well, something else that's happened this week, something else came out today, and that is NASCAR Full Speed, the latest iteration of the docuseries that NASCAR has been doing. Now, obviously, it started as a docuseries on Netflix, sort of like the Drive to Survive type element. Now it's they've revamped it. It's on Prime now. I watched it last night. Super entertaining. Definitely need to check this out. They decide to follow 4 drivers. They've got Noah Gragson, Brad Keselowski, Connor Zilich, Kyle Busch, and they follow their stories through Daytona. It's about a 90-minute show. And the man, one of the people very responsible for this, an 11-time Emmy winner, 3-time Peabody Award winner, one of the original executive producers on 30 for 30, and also someone who was a lead executive producer on something you may have heard of called The Last Dance, is NASCAR's John Dahl. So let's welcome in John now, because he is the man with the content plan and behind all the scenes of what's been going on. John, great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing really well. You were talking to me about this project in Daytona as it was being filmed, and I got to watch it, and I have to acknowledge that part of me was like, man, this is really good, and part of me was like very jealous that you guys got the access and you guys got to open up the way that you did. I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, in this show that they have Noah talking about his dad and tearfully, emotionally, I think is pretty sure this is the first time that Noah has addressed this. So incredible access that you guys have. What was the thinking and the plan going into all of this, John?
Really, Jeff, the thinking here was to pivot from a playoff focus where we have multiple episodes on the playoffs. We don't have playoffs anymore. Now we've got the chase. And so going forward, we thought as we moved to Amazon Prime Video that we wanted to do more of a one-off approach. Instead of multiple episodes on something, how about we just do one just outstanding film on built around a particular race. I think one thing this allows us to do is to really pick our characters up front. We are not beholden to the playoff standings at all. We can go with who we think are the stories that our audiences want to hear more. And so with all of them, with Kyle Busch, with Brad Keselowski recovering from his broken leg, which was certainly unexpected in the offseason, and our phenom 19-year-old Connor Zilich. And then we've got Noah Gragson. All of them were willing to just go there on and off the track, do whatever we needed to do to tell their stories. And that's what makes it work when you have that full access.
So you've done so many documentaries like these, and where you have to, you have to tell the people like, hey, we need this kind of access. How did the conversations go like that? Like when you call a Brad Keselowski and you say, I need to be there for your rehab, or you call Noah Gragson and say, listen, we want to ask all about it. Your dad, we want to be in the sauna with you while you're getting ready in the cold plunge. And, what kind of pushback do you get? How much openness do you get? What are those conversations like?
I think it's important in that situation not to hold back, to be totally transparent on what we want and why we want it. And it's to humanize them ultimately, to make them more relatable, I think, so fans can understand not just what they're doing on the track, but who they are as human beings. And, the conversation in particular with Noah, we thought it was important to focus on Noah and his story. He's really an interesting story in so many ways. And when we had that first discussion with him, we were very upfront. I mean, it's not the first thing you bring up, certainly, but we were saying, look, if we need to talk about what happened with your father and the fatal DUI, are you willing to go there? Are you willing to talk about it and show us everything that you're thinking about that situation? And he said, yes. There was nothing that, Noah said was out of bounds, off limits. We could do whatever we thought was most important to telling his story in the right way.
I have to wonder, like, when you are coming up with these guys, I mean, I assume it's not 4 that are just incredibly obvious. You came up with 4 that I think worked great, and they maybe were the top storylines, but you're considering a bunch of people, and you just have to figure out what is going to best serve this project. How did you whittle down the drivers to those 4 in particular?
We were thinking about stories that we have told in seasons 1 and 2. Okay. So we didn't want to necessarily go just tread ground that we'd already covered in the first 2 seasons when we were focused on the playoffs. That was one consideration. The other was like build around this specific event. So it's the Daytona 500. All right. What are the storylines? And we thought about, okay, William Byron going for a 3-peat could be a possibility, but we've done a lot with William up to this point. But what stood out to us without a doubt was Kyle Busch. I mean, look at Kyle Busch has done everything in racing except win the Daytona 500. And now in his 21st start, he's trying to finally, close that loop and get that trophy on his trophy shelf there that it is missing. So Kyle Busch made a ton of sense to us because what a compelling story. Somebody like him, everything that he's accomplished, one of the greatest drivers in history, going for the one race he hasn't won. And then the flip side of that. Now let's go completely on the other end of the spectrum. Connor Zilisch, who's being billed perhaps as the greatest prospect since Jeff Gordon. Look what he did just last year. I know he didn't win the season championship. Jesse Love, slipped in there and won the season title in Phoenix. But Connor had a historic year. And so at his age and everything that he's done up to this point, he's constantly lived up to the hype. Can he do it again? At 19, could he win the Daytona 500 in his first attempt? We thought that would be a fascinating story to follow. So Connor and Kyle were like immediately the first 2. And then the other 2 came over time as we looked at situations and just logistics, everything. And Brad Keselowski, I will tell you that once he broke his leg, it was like, wow, there's a storyline, to actually see if he can qualify to just get behind the wheel for the race. That's going to be a different kind of story to follow. So we were in on that. And then Noah, because the conversation with Noah went so well, because he was so open about everything, we were like, we'd be crazy not to tell Noah's story.
So one thing that's interesting is like with full speed, in a sense, you have all these drivers that start and then you build to the champion, right? And so you sort of have to have the champion's thread in a way following through. You can't just blindside people and say, oh, by the way, this guy won. Like you have to be following him a little bit. Where with this format, sure, one of the guys you were following could have won, but with the way super speedways are, the odds weren't great for you. So you sort of had to commit yourself to being like, hey, we're telling these 4 stories. We might not have a lot on whoever wins. And we just sort of have to figure out how to just say, hey, here's who won at the end. Was that a challenge to wrap your head around, or was everybody just be like, this is how we're doing it?
Oh yeah, that was a challenge to wrap our heads around and make sure we were good with that. And I think the beauty of what Tim Mullen and Jackie Decker, our directors, did to open the film was that you introduced all the, so many different drivers, a montage of what Daytona 500 it was for them in their career. So you see like Tyler Reddick in that montage of other drivers. You establish like the field, so to speak. I thought that was a brilliant way to open it. And then when we get in later to something like, what is the big one? And then again, you get a montage of drivers. So Tyler Reddick keeps slipping in there a little bit, but we had to kind of be at peace with that. The reality is with 4 drivers even that we're following, and we were at one point thinking maybe we'll just follow 3. We decided to go with 4. There's still like a 90% chance you're not going to have the winning driver. So it's got to be the stories that carry the day, not the results. We do want to, tie the loose end at the end and let the audience know where each of our 4 drivers that we were following finished. But then we pivot to, the incredible story of Michael Jordan and 2311 and Tyler Reddick winning the race. And I thought it was a really good job by Tim, by Jackie, by Tally Hare to get Tyler, get that private moment with Tyler. I hate to be to do a spoiler alert here, but that is I love that final moment with Tyler because his guard was down. You could see the genuine joy that he was feeling at that moment, and what a way to kind of end it. I also very much like having a narrator in this new iteration of Full Speed. We didn't have a narrator in the first 2 seasons. And I think having a narrator, Mark Wistrach did such a great job, country musician, actor, really had a great feel for the content. He gives us, a guide that sometimes you just need to bring the story along, to make it feel, I think, a little more cinematic. it's nice having a narrator there to help make the turns that you need to make at times.
One other thing that I was actually surprised about, because when I was talking to you in Daytona about this, I didn't realize that you were going to turn this around so quickly, because the other seasons of Full Speed, you finished the season, and ends in the fall, and then they were airing. The first one was in, I think, maybe late January, early February, the first year.
In January. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, last year it was even further in the calendar, and so you had quite a bit of distance. This one you had to turn pretty quickly. When was this all wrapped up and finished, given the turnaround time?
Well, we basically locked picture Friday, Saturday, and then we're going through color correction, audio mix, just all the final tweaks, and it was delivered at the end of the day Monday.
This last Monday.
Yeah, this past Monday. So just 3 days ago.
Wow.
We had looked at the possibility of doing it even a week earlier, to actually come in at the end of February, wow. And to do it, on the 26th. But mutually decided with Amazon Prime folks that it was just a little too quick for everybody. And so we could use just a little more time. I think the further you get away from the event, when you're doing a specific event, maybe the harder it might be to pull people back in and want to go there again. So I think we all felt the urgency, like, let's turn this around as quickly as we can without, terribly sacrificing the quality. And that's where, again, Tim and Jackie, I told them, they did a brilliant job. They told the story in a way that made it feel like, in my opinion, that they had all the time in the world, and they didn't.
So you guys did the NASCAR Rising series, where you followed, Hocevar and Jesse Love, and you're Raja, I think, and you've been doing more and more of this stuff since you've come on board with NASCAR. What else do you want people to know about what you guys are trying to do with the content right now that's been rolling out?
We're trying to take fewer swings and make them big, make them impactful when we do something. So I feel strongly about the Full Speed franchise and the series and what we can do with it going forward. And the same for Rising. The common thread with Full Speed and Rising is you're trying to get fans invested in our drivers, to care about them as people, and hopefully bring in some casual fans along the way. That's very much something that we strive to do, to reach more casual fans. And the way you do that, I think, is through storytelling, through making them, connect in a variety of ways. So I think that's first and foremost the priority. But I do think at times you do need to mix in the historical. That's why I thought the documentary, We've Lost Dale Earnhardt 25 Years Later, that we did with Fox Sports Films, was so important. The 25th anniversary, I thought, was just something that we should commemorate in some way. And, that was my instinct. And it really was born, in a sense, out of doing the Earnhardt documentary series with Amazon Prime Video. And Mike Helton's iconic words were never used in that series. If you go back and check, they're never there. And I was thinking, you know what? I think we should do a documentary through the prism just of those words. And so I called Mike and I talked to him about it. I said, first of all, Mike, do you think we should do something for the 25th anniversary? Because I think if Mike Helton is telling me, John, I don't think we should, for whatever reason, I'm not sure I'd want to go forward there. But he's like, no, I think fans will expect it. I do think we should do something. And then I asked him, would he be willing, to put himself out there and let us tell the story really through his words. And he was, and I'm so grateful for that. Dale Earnhardt to this day is still one of our most popular drivers. I mean, you hear about it in the documentary from Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. And so why not embrace that? And I think it's important. It's just like you're making a meal. You mix in a variety of ingredients. I don't think you can just do one thing. I think you mix in, you get a balanced meal in there to a degree. And I think telling stories like that, telling the Earnhardt, story that we told with Dale Jr. and Kelly last year, that was on Prime Video, still is there, is so important, I think, to have a well-rounded offering of content for fans.
Well, John, thank you for shedding some light on this. It's very cool to have you in NASCAR, and your storytelling ability has been really cool. You can really notice the difference it's made. So thanks for coming on to talk about it.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that.
John Dahl, everybody. And definitely, I'm I'm telling you, it's worth your time to check out the latest Full Speed, and we'll see where they go from here with the content that NASCAR is turning out. It's been obviously noticeable that it's been improved. So, obviously, I think this is a personality-based sport, and the more you can tell about the drivers, right? As I've always said, it's not necessarily about the cars; it's about the people inside the cars, and that's how a lot of fans base their fandom on. It's some people are sure it's about the driving ability, but some people it's like, no, I like how this guy talks, or I like this guy's story, or this guy tells it how it is. So, a lot of you listening to this picked your favorite driver based on their personality and stuff. So I think that's important for NASCAR to be able to continue to showcase that. Well, in terms of an on-track storyline, one thing to watch as we get into the Phoenix conversation now is the tires. I know this wasn't that long ago, so everybody remembers. You'll remember last year's championship race where the teams were pushing it on the tires, which had been the option tire and then became the tire. Well, guess what? That tire is coming back again this weekend, the same tire that was used in the championship race. So the question is, will teams use the same strategy? Lower air pressures, more grip, faster speeds, but higher risk of possibly having a problem. Now it's not the championship, it's the chase, right? So you need points. You don't want to have a DNF, but you also want to win the race, get a bunch of points. We've seen how much that matters. I asked drivers this week. Kyle Busch said, quote, "You'll see a more conservative nature just being the beginning of the season and people probably wanting to take care of their equipment to try to get through the West Coast swing." But not all the drivers were as sure that we'd see that much of a change.
I think it needs to be fairly similar, right? I mean, we'll have a little more horsepower when we go back there, which, would change the racing just a little bit, not a whole bunch. Same way we'll this weekend a little bit. Maybe have a little bit more tire wear probably, but it won't be anything drastic.
I mean, I just hope it's a little bit more durable than it was. I felt like, yes, we were pushing it, being in the Final Four, but also guys, towards the middle of the pack were blowing tires as well. So I think, I don't have a number on how many tires blew throughout the weekend, but I just hope that we can have a little less of that and maybe a little more forgiveness. I mean, obviously the teams are going to lower the air and do all those things as much as they can, but it's can we just have the guys on the extreme that fail and not the guys kind of in the middle?
I mean, I think the more horsepower will have a little bit of effect on that. Perhaps you're going to raise it a little bit, but the teams, I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes as far as being preventative. Usually, as things evolve, they get smarter and they say, all right, well, if we want to run that air pressure, we got to run X camber, and so they'll make adjustments, and they always get a little better as time goes on.
It would certainly be very tempting to run some lower air pressures. I think, especially with the 750, though, it was 670 last year. Now this is the first oval with the 750 package. Had it at COTA last week, helped tire wear. We'll see what that does here. But speaking of Denny Hamlin, he obviously returns there himself after heartbreak last fall. He was dominating the race, leading 208 laps. He was cruising to the victory, and that's when William Byron's blown tire brought out the caution, triggered a pit stop sequence. Kyle Larson ended up winning the championship with the correct call on the strategy there. Denny obviously had an eventful offseason after that with the antitrust lawsuit and the loss of his father in a fire that burned his parents' house to the ground. How is Denny feeling about coming back to Phoenix?
Thing for you, but emotionally going back to a place that broke your heart like that last fall, will you, when you drive into the track, will you think about that? Will that cross your mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a tough weekend that we had there, but really for us it's about can we go out there and have another strong performance, and hopefully didn't lose anything in the off season. So I think that we should go there and have high expectations.
I mean, that's certainly what would help make the return trip better for him, right? If Denny was able to come back and have the same speed. After all, I mean, that was the most recent race, the real race that NASCAR had was that one last November. But has anyone made gains this offseason? We don't know. And we also don't know how Chevy's new body, their new nose, is going to do on a normal oval track. a lot of talk has been about, well, we'll really see what the Chevys have at Las Vegas next week. But William Byron said this week, don't underestimate how much aero matters at a place like Phoenix as well. And remember, by the way, Ryan Blaney actually won last fall's race at Phoenix. He passed Brad Keselowski in the final turn. Brad Keselowski kind of blew the corner there, and Blaney won again. And Blaney actually has the best average finish at Phoenix in the 8 next-gen races that have taken place. He has an average finish of 5.8, and he has 7 top 5s in the 8 Phoenix races. Kyle Larson, by the way, is second best at 9.3, so it's not even close. Ryan Blaney has dominated for the most part, but it was Christopher Bell who has won the last 2 spring races. Christopher Bell's the back-to-back winner of the spring races at Phoenix, and he needs another day to dig out of a points hole, another big day, because Reddick has obviously a big lead, a 70-point lead. But really, if you think about it, yes, the drivers want to win the regular season title, but they really want to be in the top 3. Why is that? Because when NASCAR ran the models, when working on this new chase format, the eventual champion in the models that they ran came from the top 3 seeds 69% of the time. So drivers are really targeting this, right? Like, yes, you want to be in the top 6 for sure, because that's almost where all the champions come from. But the top 3 seeds, almost 70% of the time, that's where the champion was coming from when they were running these simulations. Bell is 55 points out of a top 3 seed right now. He's obviously well beyond that 127, I think, out of the regular season championship. But looking at the top 3, he's 55 out. Hamlin's 54 out. And Chase Briscoe, another one who you would have thought had, big aspirations on a regular season title. He's 68 out of a top 3 seed. So there's still plenty of time to recover. And we've also seen now how much winning matters. And so as you're trying to gain points back, winning is really going to count, because take Tyler Reddick, for example, right? He has a 70-point lead. Well, 45 of those points are due to the 15 extra bonus points they now get for winning a race. And imagine the controversy, by the way, if this had been the old point system. If this had been the old point system without the 15 points for each of those, he'd only be up by 25 points. And you'd say, man, a guy wins the first 3 races of the season and he only has a 25-point lead. 70 sounds a lot closer to what somebody should reasonably expect to have than 25. So I think that's a really good start. Listen, as NASCAR continues, IndyCar continues, we also have F1 now starting and joining the fray. And I don't know if you know this, for those of you who don't follow F1 closely, but it's a new car this year. They have new regulations. So everybody's come with a new car. And in testing, it looked like Ferrari might actually have something. Mercedes also as well, with the new engine units and stuff. Like, people are high on them. We don't know what's going to happen. They're in Australia getting ready for the season. But one thing we do know is that America's new team, Cadillac, which is, by the way, owned by the same owner as Spire and Andretti and IndyCar, Dan Taurus, Checo Perez and Valtteri Bottas are their drivers. They're not going to be the slowest cars on the grid. They're not going to be finishing last. How do I know that? Well, I don't know if you've been following this, but Aston Martin, Adrian Newey, he was the Red Bull, the genius that built all the Red Bull cars and sketched them by hand and all this stuff. And he was this genius guy, right? He goes over to Aston Martin to be the team principal there. And they're having some major problems. They haven't been able to make it through the tests. They've been parking it from the tests. Well, now my coworker, Luke Smith, who's down in Australia, I'd love to have him on, but it's in the middle of the night in Australia. They were in a news conference Thursday, their time. And Luke tweeted that Adrian Newey told reporters that the extreme vibrations that have been going through the chassis to the driver's fingers has led to fears of permanent nerve damage. Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champion, thinks he can only do 25 laps before he will have to park. And Lance Stroll, his teammate who had a wrist injury a few years ago, thinks he can only make it 15 laps. And then they'll have to pull in the pits and park the car, retire the car. So a huge disaster in the making for Aston Martin and Adrian Newey, who had a lot of expectations going there. So at least Cadillac, no matter what we don't know what their performance is going to be, but they won't be the worst. They won't be the slowest. And we'll see how America's new team does there. It's going to be fascinating actually to watch F1 in general, because it's now wide open. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. It's a complete reversal of everything we've seen. It should be, because it's all new. And the start, by the way, I don't know if you've been following this, with the new engine units and all that stuff, the start is going to be crazy. They've been having problems getting off the line cleanly. So F1, their race is Saturday, 11 p.m. Eastern on Apple TV. They moved over to Apple TV now. Huge mistake from my point of view to take it from ESPN to Apple TV, put it behind a paywall. You lose all the casual viewers. That's going to be a tough one to swallow. But F1's hoping that Apple will give them a boost and promote them. I'm skeptical. Then we have Cup practice and qualifying will be noon Saturday, noon Eastern on Prime. IndyCar then races at Phoenix again, 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox, followed by the O'Reilly race. That's 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the CW. And then Cup races 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on FS1. There's no more Fox races until Kansas now. And of course, with daylight savings time this weekend, the time change, Phoenix always stays on the same time, which is always confusing, and everybody else moves. But that will be 12:30 local for Phoenix, 3:30 Eastern on FS1. And as always, my daughter Liliana wants me to remind you once again to like and subscribe, which I'm trying to build my YouTube page here. I'm not going to get it to Cleetus levels of 4 million or whatever. Probably not even Eric Estep levels of 200,000, but I would love your support as I continue to build this here. And Liliana also says to remind you to watch my other videos as well. She says that is key. And if I don't say that, then I'm missing out. So everybody, thank you for watching episode 3 of the Gluckcast. We'll talk to you Sunday night on the Teardown. See you, everybody.